Right, welcome to part 2 of the Two Saints Show end of season review, featuring Saints fans we know, most season ticket holders and away travellers. Up first we have Nigel McCallan, who used to steward on the away travel coaches.
Hi Nigel.
Hiya Mark, how you doing?
Yeah, lovely to see you, mate. Really pleased to see you.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get on with the questions, my friend.
Okay.
So the first question up is, we'd just like your thoughts on Saints season during the 2021.
Yeah. Ultimately disappointing, to be perfectly honest, which I think is a view shared by a lot of fans. Apart from our usual very poor start against Crystal Palace, getting knocked out to Brentford in the League Cup, we then went on a run. We were playing some great football. If the season had ended in December, I would have said, what a great season. I'd have been really happy. Then we got to January. After the Liverpool game, it was mainly all downhill. We had injuries, which I think affected our style of play. I think we were exposed with lack of cover in various positions. And I'll be perfectly honest, I was just glad to get to the end of the season, almost really just to get the last 2 seasons out of the way, given the pandemic we've been in. It's just not been real to me. Watching it on TV, it's not the same. I know you'll agree. You can't beat actually being at the match. You get so fed up with the fake crowd sound, if that's the channel you're watching or whatever, and listening to the crass commentators. Apparently, we've lost 9-0 a couple of times, but I never knew that. So it's almost if they've written 9-0 at the top of their crib sheet or something, isn't it? I think Franny Bernardi does his best, but I don't think he's necessarily the greatest sort of presenter, a nicer guy as he is. I don't think he comes across as well. He does his best to support the Saints, but it's difficult.
What was your best Saints game of the season?
I'll give you 2. I really enjoyed the Aston Villa away game until Aston Villa started scoring. We were playing really well. We went 4-0 up, and then they started scoring, and then it was sort of typical Saints, wasn't it? And the other one was the Liverpool home game for a completely different reason. I was a nervous wreck come the end of it. I think I needed heart pills, etc. But it was a sense of achievement. And I know Ralph has had a lot of stick for it. Where he sort of showed his emotions. I know he joked he had wind in his eyes or whatever. But I like to see that. But, I don't think a lot of fans like to see that, do they? I don't think there's anything wrong with showing a bit of emotion sometimes. I know some fans don't like it, but I enjoy where he tries to bond with the fans at the end of the game. He gets a bit carried away sometimes, but I don't mind that, to be perfectly honest. And just to draw a comparison with Liverpool, we haven't had a great season, but there's a lot of other clubs out there which haven't had a great season. Look at Liverpool. Everybody forgets or seems to forget they got thrashed by Aston Villa fairly early on in the season, and then they had a real poor run until the last month or so when they started winning games again. So we weren't the only club which struggled during this period. And just going back to Saints, I think a lot of our problems were down to injuries, and I'm not sure players were coming back fit. I think they were picking up injuries. I think there's been a problem with Staplewood, haven't they? Because I think they're very reliant on the facilities there, and they couldn't use the appropriate facilities like the swimming pools, saunas, etc. To use, for recovery. All right, I know the same applies to other clubs, but I don't know what the other clubs' facilities are like. I can only, compare ours. I just think some of our players just didn't come back the same players after injuries. And certainly we missed key players as well, didn't we? Oriol Romeo, who was sort of playing out of his skin up until his injury. We missed him. Diallo, I thought, started really well when he came in. Then he got injured and he didn't look like the same player. Yeah. And I would even sort of say James Ward-Prowse come the end of the season, last few games, he didn't look like the James Ward-Prowse that we saw earlier in the season. Whether that's tiredness, I don't know. I think you've got to remember that we've got a pretty small squad, and a lot of these players haven't really had a proper break, haven't they? I just think a lot, towards the end of the season, particularly, we just look jaded.
So I'm going to move on.
Sorry, Mark.
Sorry, just to balance that out then, Nigel, can I ask you, what was your worst Saints game of the season?
Well, apart from the obvious one, up at Old Trafford, which I don't think we deserve to lose by that scoreline. and what can you do when a player gets sent off in the first minute. And we had the youngest side up there, didn't we? A half inexperienced side up there. And of course, we then lost Bedrek, didn't we, towards the end of the game, where he shouldn't have been sent off, but he was. But ignoring that one, I was really disappointed with the semi-final against Leicester. We didn't really seem to be up for it. I wanted to see them give a good go, and they didn't.
I have to say, Nigel, that's my one, because I'm a great believer living in the city that if we could win a trophy again, it attracts a whole new generation of people, not just in the city, but countrywide, worldwide.
You get known, don't you? And it helps with money will come into the club, etc. Because people want to be associated with the club. And I just think opportunities don't come along too often. I just think we should have, if we'd ended up losing 3 or 4-0, as long as we'd given it a good go, I would have been disappointed, but would I minded so much? I think, well, at least we gave it a go.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to move on. So the next question is who was your player of the season?
I suppose ultimately it's got to be James Ward-Prowse. Played every minute of the season, scored some great goals. But the only thing with James, I'm not sure that he's a captain, really. I don't really feel he's a leader on the pitch, or what I think of as a leader on the pitch. For what he achieved and some of his goals he scored this season, he'd be my player of the season. Honourable mentions to Stuart Armstrong, who I think had a very good season. Once again, in and out with injuries. Carl Walker-Peters, I thought, had a decent first full season as well, generally, until he got injured. And Romeo, again, I thought had a good season. Danny Ings as well, of course, until he started picking up injuries.
Your one for the future?
Teller, obviously, who, when he started playing a run of games, looked very promising. And then haven't seen him live as well. I'll give you 2. I know you only asked for 1. But Salisu, I think, is going to be a star.
We're convinced that Salisu is going to be the man, personally.
We just got to keep him.
Exactly. And play him in the centre of the defence. Don't play him at left back, please.
Well, but that touches on our other problem, isn't it? Where we haven't got cover in certain positions.
Yeah.
Where Vokins, who doesn't appear to be good enough, went out on loan, and Valerie, who doesn't appear to be good enough, went out on loan. We've got a bigger problem at left back now, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, I just think with the style that we play, obviously he's got the legs, because, I don't know what your feelings about Vestergaard and Stevens are, but when we're pushing forward and you go over the halfway line, it's all about having the legs to get back, because obviously you're going forward,
Yeah, well, I think that's my problem with Vestergaard, to be honest. Whilst he had a reasonable season, particularly the first half again, and put some really good long crossfield passes and then managed to pick out players. If he crosses a halfway line, he's a bit like sort of a oil tanker, isn't he? Sort of turning sometimes, where it takes him ages to turn around and actually get back.
Yeah. Our joke on the pod is he's got the turning circle of the Queen Mary.
You know what I mean.
He's about as quick as the Queen Mary as well, to be fair.
So, Nigel, I'm looking forward to this one. What was your Saints goal of the season?
Well, you could probably pick 1 or 2 or 3 from the Villa game. Danny Ings didn't score that many poor goals this season. Ward-Prowse some cracking free kicks. Romeo's volley. One of Shea Adams as well. I'm probably going to go for sort of Danny Ings sort of lob against Liverpool, though, which I think was just sort of instinctive and was just a brilliant finish.
Yeah, he didn't even look.
He knew where the goal was, didn't he? And all right, did he really mean it? I don't. Well, he was going for a goal, wasn't he? But let's give him the benefit of the doubt. It was a brilliant finish.
I think the thing is he will score goals in the 18-yard box when there's nothing on, though, Nigel. He'll still go for it when there's no player to pass to or there's nothing on. He can make goals out of nothing for me. But anyway, the last question, your thoughts on maybe what we've got to look forward to going into next season?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think we can touch on Salisu and Teller again that they show and promise for the future. We still need to offload some of our dead wood, which isn't sort of Rel's fault. But, we've still got people like Wesley Hoyt on our books, haven't we? And, of course, Lamina. Saints fans are thinking, well, just sell them. But it's not that easy. They're on contracts. You're not telling me they're going to give up their contracts because they're both going to be on decent money, aren't they? And I suspect Hoyt's were probably still paying his salary in some way.
Yeah, but they've both got a year left on those contracts. Yeah. Well, you got El Sanusi coming back. But,
and players like Long now, as much as I like Shane Long, I think his days are now numbered. We've got with players we think of youngsters which are still out on loan or been out on loan, like Josh Sims. He's actually 24 now, isn't he? And there's players like that we need to get off our books somehow to improve the financial side. I'm slightly concerned that I'm not sure how good our youngsters are below the first team that are coming through.
They're not, Nigel. I go to see the B team now regularly. All right, I haven't been since lockdown, but the results for the under-18s and the B team, I mean, we haven't even been competitive this season. I've got to be brutally honest about it. We just have. I mean, the women's team has been the bright spark, in another way, sort of barren season underneath the first team, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what positions would you like to see strengthened? And then I'll leave it at that.
Clearly the left back. I would probably still like to see another sort of central defender come in. You've got the Danny Ings question, haven't you? Hopefully we can keep Danny Ings, but equally if we keep Danny Ings for the season, we've got to try and keep him fit. When he's fresh and fit, he scores goals.
Do you think there's a chasm when it comes to the strikers, though? Because, I mean, Ralph should be playing Shea Adams and Danny Ings every week, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Totally agree.
But the thing is, there's a chasm between those two and then the next strikers, who are Dan Lindeloo and Michael. Would I be too disappointed if they were sort of shown the door at some stage? If we could offload them, probably not. I don't know how you feel about our signing of Theo Walcott. Bit nonplussed, to be honest, but he seems to be popular with some groups of fans. But I was nonplussed, to be perfectly honest. The problem I had, Nigel, very quickly, and I'm going to end the interview after this, so forgive me. But the problem that I had was the club just keep talking about his influence off the pitch. He signed a 2-year contract to play for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, agree.
We aren't the retirement home.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And it's not like he hasn't got a fantastic bank balance, because I seen him make his debut down at St Mary's, and I thought, this lad's got the world at his feet. But the problem was that, I think what I discovered this season was his main attribute is his pace. I don't think he's a particularly great striker. I think it's his pace, but I think his pace is gone.
Well, yeah, he's still got the same problems I think he had when we sold him, which is he doesn't seem to know when to pass the ball when he can't score. Which is a bit of a problem, isn't it? A bit of an issue when he's meant to be a forward.
I think the fact he's ended up back at Saints just demonstrates that he's had a career that's been unfulfilled, sadly.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Anyway, Nigel, thank you very much.
Cheers, Em.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Em. Bye.
Right, we're just going to take a very short break. Up next, we've got Jackson Paget. From Thursday, the 17th of June, we're bringing you Two Saints at the Euros, which will run for the duration of the competition. It will feature games involving England, Scotland, Denmark and Poland, because some of these involve Saints players. We will have regular features like Saints club news, other football news and Saints transfer gossip. Still broadcasting on Fiesta 95 FM in Southampton, Thursday 1 to 3 PM and via online radiobox.com.
Hello.
Hey, Jackson, thanks for coming on, and it's good to hear from you, mate, anyway.
Yeah, and
we're going to get straight into it because I'm sure you've got a lot to tell me.
Yeah.
Right? Basically, the first question is, we just want your thoughts on Saints' overall season that's just passed.
Yeah. So, where to start, really? I think that my views will match quite a few Saints fans' views from the whole season, to be honest. The first half, absolutely superb. I think we continued the 2020 form from the back end of the lockdown last season. Yes. We looked pretty good going forward, pretty solid defensively. It was great. We were top of the table for a couple of days, all looking good. And then 2021 hit, and I think it was just a little bit of we flattered to deceive, really. I think we just ended up going on a bit of a losing streak, and I think losing games brings a losing mentality, and I think that just kind of has etched into the club a little bit at the moment. The 21s seem to be losing quite a lot. The under 18 seem to be losing quite a lot, and it's a little bit of a disappointing season. I think if it had been the other way around, it might, we started the season poorly and ended the season really well. We'd have probably been a bit more positive, but happy to still be in the Premier League, and hopefully, they can have a good off season and get a few recruits in, rest up, and we can go again for 2021-22.
Right, just on those points that you made, Jackson. Right. How much of it for you was A, the small squad, B, would I say lack of depth or quality within the squad? Because the thing is Ralph plays high intensity game of football, right? Yeah. And that leads to soft tissue injuries. Yeah. And obviously, I think I read a stat that we were something like, at one stage we were third or fourth on the injury list, and we were behind. I think the only other two clubs ahead of us were Manchester United and, not Manchester United, Liverpool and Leicester. Mm-hmm. So I just want to try and understand, do you think it was also down to injuries though as well, that the season kind of tailed off, and the size of squad, and maybe the lack of quality as well?
Yeah, I think it's got to be a contributing factor. I think it spoke volumes that in January we only had one fit left back and one fit right back, and he decided to get rid of Vokings and Valerie on loan. I think he clearly doesn't rate them as players, because they would be our cover, and I think it showed a few games later when Walker Peters was out for a few games and we were having to play Bednarak, Stevens, Ward-Prowse. It was a bit of square pegs in round holes type thing.
Yeah.
I think that the lack of squad depth is definitely a contributing factor. I think injuries, you can point to injuries, but I don't think I think all teams in the Premier League have suffered with injuries. It's been a bit of a weird season where they can't have their usual recovery sessions, i.e. the sauna. They couldn't be in the pool, the ice chambers, things like that, to get players to recover quicker. I don't think we can just point to injuries. I think that, yes, the lack of squad depth is one of the major points, and it sounds a bit bitter, but I think we did have a little bit of bad luck on our side. One of my main points is the Villa game at home, and we lost that game and we ended up on the losing streak, the worst ever, 6 in a row, was it? If we hadn't have lost that Aston Villa game, I'm adamant that there were a few games down the line that we wouldn't have lost. And Ings is offside by a hair, and the handball for them is a clear handball and a red card. And I think that game is a real turning point in our season. We can pick up some points there, we build a bit more confidence, we can go again. But we lost that game, and the confidence just looked completely shot from the whole team after that. Right.
So what in your opinion was Saint's best game of the season?
Our best performance?
Yeah.
Our best overall performance. That's a good question, that, because there were patches of games that I thought we played very, very well in. I think the first half of the Aston Villa away game was a very, very good half. And the first half of the Man United at home game was a very, very good half. I think the best overall performance that we had was probably one of two games, and that was probably the Everton at home game where they were top of the league and we absolutely bossed them the whole game and looked comfortably better than them. Or the Newcastle at home game where they were miles out of our depth at that point, and that was the game that put us top of the league at the point.
No, those are two fantastic choices, especially the Everton game, because you make a very valid point. You know, Everton were top of the table at the time.
Yeah.
And we did actually really boss that game. I've forgotten all about it, Jackson.
Yeah, I know. It was such a long time ago, but we made them look mid-table, which is where they ended up at. At the time, they were top of the table. They were full of confidence, and it was a real statement victory in my eyes.
Yeah, so moving on from there, I have to ask you the flip question.
Yeah. What
was our worst game of the season?
I think one game really stands out. I don't think I need to mention which one. It was a really poor performance, and it just looked like a team that was completely devoid of ideas, to be honest. You know, we got the red card in 2 minutes, which was a red card, no arguments there. And they just didn't look like they knew what they were doing. There was no organisation, no leadership. You know, just because you go down to 10 men doesn't mean you lose 9-0. And I think that was just a real, especially after being beat 9-0 the season previous. You shouldn't be beaten 9-0 in consecutive seasons, and that is a real low for me personally, for the players, I'm sure, the manager, and the whole club, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel that there was mitigating circumstances to that defeat compared to the Leicester defeat. You know, I felt the lineup, it was you know, kindergarten players, to be honest with you.
I agree, but I feel like some of the leaders in the supposed leaders in the club need to drag these younger players through. And even you're playing your younger players, you don't go and lose 9-0. You know, we still had Bednarak playing, we still had a first choice goalie, we still had Ward-Prowse, we still had Adams, we still had Ings. So it was a real poor night. There have been some others this season that have been poor, but I thought, well, that one obviously stands out as a real low light of the season.
I mean, I know that we only had, I think, the French centre half youngster on the bench defensively.
Yeah,
I think I would have brought him on, and tried to shore it up a little bit. I think the most annoying thing from that game, although I don't think it was our worst, I didn't feel it was our worst performance, but the worst thing about that game was that after we conceded a few, we still had a very gung-ho attitude to the game.
Yeah, I think that's it's in games that works. You know, you go 2-0 up, you can still go gung-ho, and you might beat a team 5-0, but it was a bit of a weird one, that United game, where they were 4-0 up at half-time and clearly going to win the game. I think we had one ruled off for offside, which even to now, I don't know how it was offside. That makes it 4-1. And they probably settle for a 4-5-1. We probably settle for a 4-5-1, and we just go on and carry on like normal. But
yeah, no.
Like you said, there have been some other poor performances. I think the Brighton at home game was a real poor performance. Right. We just looked like we didn't fancy it that day, and Brighton were far the better team and deserved winners.
Anyway, moving on. Mm-hmm. Your player of the season?
I think there's got to be one. I'm sure many people have voted for him, and he's already been voted the player of the season. But James Ward-Prowse for me was outstanding this season. I think to be able to play 2 back-to-back full seasons, every 90 minutes of every game for a midfielder is testament to his fitness, his discipline, and the way we play. And for me, he's a 100% standout. I would say honourable mentions to Stuart Armstrong, who I thought was very good. Walker-Peters, very, very good first season with Saints. And I thought Che Adams has come on leaps and bounds, and fingers crossed we can keep Ings, and him and Ings can build up a more developing partnership, because they look very good going forward together.
It's something I want to see, Jackson. I've got to say, one of the things that sort of infuriated me with Ralph was that, I think Shea had scored for us, and he went off to Scotland, and he'd scored goals for Scotland. Mm-hmm. And he came back, and Ralph went through this period where he just wouldn't pick him.
Yeah, I think Ralph likes what he sees in Adams. I think he sees him as a little bit little bit raw and a little bit naive, or a little bit of a sort of an unpolished gem. But the thing that frustrated me was, like you say, he was scoring goals. He went off to Scotland. He scored his first international goal, and he came back and he was dropped for Redmond, who I think Redmond had a very poor season, but he's not a striker. And
he's not a striker, exactly.
I feel a bit sorry for him being played up there. You know, he's not a main striker. He can't. He's never played there in his life, and I don't know why he was playing instead of Adams at the time. So
yeah, he's a player. He's a winger. He's a player who plays off the front too. But the one thing, I was just going to go on and say, one of the things that kind of concerns me with Shay Adams and Danny Ings is that there's nobody actually competing for the forward berths against those two, because I know people will point the likes of Michael Omafemi and maybe Dan Lindeloo, but I think there's a chasm between those two and Shay Adams and Danny Ings. Anyway, I'm going to move on, mate.
No worries.
Right. So basically, what was your goal of the season?
That's a good question. I've seen the vote on the club website. Some very, very good choices there. I think personally, my goal of the season was it's a difficult one. I was very impressed with Ward-Prowse's free kick away at Newcastle. You know, he had many free kicks, but I thought that free kick was his best free kick of the season. Sat at home watching that, and although it was in a losing cause, sat at home watching that, I said, no, there's no way he's scoring from here. And then for him to just put that in the top bins like he did was very, very impressive. I think the Adams goal as well away at Sheffield United, he struck that so cleanly. So it would have to be one of those two for me.
Okay, no problem. And then you're one to watch for the future,
player wise.
Yeah,
one to watch for the future. I think. I liked the look of. He only got a few minutes, but I liked the look of Caleb Watts. I think he got a few minutes in the cup games. I think he got a couple of minutes in a couple of the Premier League games, but not seeing a lot of him. But just from what I saw of him, I think it was against Shrewsbury where he got a good run in the team. He had some nice touches, good movement, and I think a lot of the other players are pretty much in the first team now. The likes of Lindeloo and Obafemi. So. For me, Caleb Watts, definitely one to look for in the future.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, man. I loved an article that he did during the week where he was asked about, who was his role model or biggest influence on his career. And believe it or not, he said JWP.
Really? Yeah, so... No, that's good. So he can hopefully take some tips off Ward-Prowse and develop in the next season, get a few more minutes, and it's probably too early to say he's going to be a superstar, but you just never know with these players. Give them a chance, and hopefully they can get going in the first team. And you never know, we might have picked a new talent.
Right. So I'm looking forward to your nuts and bolts answer to this one. I want your thoughts on maybe what we as supporters have to look forward to or can expect from next season.
Yeah, so it's probably quite doom and gloom at the moment. It's quite difficult to look forward to next season when we've been on the run that we have. But I think there is optimism to look forward to. I think that Ralph's clearly said that we need some players in, and I hope the board can back him and we can get some recruits in. I think we're probably looking at least 4 or 5 players that we need in, and these are 4 or 5 players that can push for the first team.
Yeah.
Not just players that will come and sit on the bench, but players that are of real, genuine quality and can push the others on, and hopefully we can get up that table a bit higher, show like what we did at the first half of the season.
So I'm going to press you a little bit, Jackson.
Yeah.
Where in the team would you say needs major open heart surgery?
Yeah. So I think the most obvious place is we need a left back, with Ryan Bertrand going. Very good servant to the club, but he's now leaving. We don't have a recognised left back at the club apart from Vokings, and I think it, like I said earlier in the piece, it spoke volumes that he let him out on loan when we didn't have backup. So a left back is somewhere that we need to invest in. I think that we need another striker, as we've also pointed out. Ings and Adams are clearly the first two. But if one of them gets injured or is not hitting their straps, we haven't got, for me, a good enough backup.
Yeah.
Obafemi and Ulundulu might form into those backups, but I think it's too early to say at the moment. So we need someone proven.
Yeah.
And I also think we need, personally, I think we need a new goalie. I think that Ralph was having a bit of a trial at the end of the season between McCarthy and Forster, and I'm not so certain he likes either of them. And I think that we probably need to go and get a number one that he likes. We can just stick in goal. The back four are comfortable with, and we can just move on from there.
Okay, cool. Jackson, all it leaves me to do then is to say, look, thanks very much for coming on, mate. And
no problem.
I mean this genuinely. I can't wait to see you, your dad, and your brother.
Yep.
Especially on the away trip, because I think, from my point of view, there's going to be a few tears, mate.
Yes, I just want to point out one thing, just to say one thing at the end here. I was very fortunate to go to all the games I was able to go to. I went to all the ones this season that fans were allowed in, and it was quite emotional getting back there, especially that first one back against Sheffield United, being able to win that and just being able to be part of that was really good. And I'm just, to be honest, looking forward to fans getting in for full stadiums and being able to support the Saints fully.
Well, Mark C here, Jackson. Thank you very much for joining us, and I hope that I'll get the chance to meet you in person as well.
Yes,
Mark talks about you an awful lot. Thank you ever so much for helping us out tonight.
No problem. Thank you very much for your time.
Well,
cheers, Jackson. Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Right, short break now, and Mark H is going to be interviewing myself, Mark C. The Two Saints podcast show will still run over the summer, featuring Saints players at the Euros and regular features such as Saints club news, Saints transfer gossip and other football news. Ways to access the podcast are: just to remind you all, you can contact us via our email address, the Two Saints podcast show at outlook.com, for questions or items you'd like to hear in future shows. You can listen to the radio show on Fiesta 95 FM in Southampton and via onlineradiobox.com. Also, the Two Saints podcast show is now available via Spotify, Cloud, Overcast, Acast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music and Podbean, or via our Facebook page, The Two Saints Show, and our YouTube channel, The Two Saints Podcast Show. Coming up next,
it's the Two Marks, C&H, on the Two Saints Show, Fiesta 95 FM.
Let's go. First question. Right, Mark, can you please give me your thoughts on the season just past, 2021 for Southampton Football Club?
Yeah, I thought off the back of the previous season, we started really well, playing some good football, got some really good early points. Looks as though we were starting to build some momentum. And yeah, I thought up to that point, up to the Liverpool game, fantastic start to the season. Best start to the season we'd had in a very long time. We were riding high on a crest of a wave. We topped the table at one point as well. I thought, wow, this is brilliant. We're going from strength to strength. And then we get to the Liverpool game, and it's almost as though the players thought they'd done enough already. And then everything started to fall apart. We got all the injuries. Key players got injured. We had to rely on the youngsters quite a bit. Somebody famously said years ago, you don't win anything with youngsters. Not sure I agree with that, but it certainly put us under pressure. And I think, unfortunately, not being able to use the full facilities available at Staplewood had an impact in the second half of the season. Thank God we got the early points, because if we hadn't, we could have been sat here having a very different conversation. So all in all, I thought it was a disappointing season in the end, but it could have been a lot worse. We're still in the Premier League. We could have not been in the Premier League. So my general thoughts are great start, not so good second half. But I think this season, because it's not as condensed this season, I think this season will be a little bit better. But I think the biggest problem was it was such a condensed season, so many fixtures in such a short space of time. And with all the injuries we had, and every other team in the Premier League suffered injuries as well, I think that had a huge impact. And I think it affected Ralph's ability to change games.
I would agree with everything that you've just pointed out there. I mean, I think basically at the end of the day, it kind of felt like we'd reached Mount Olympus, and then we fell off, the slope down the back.
Yeah.
And, the season was very much like that. And I think the thing is like, it was after the Liverpool game, he had reached the hiatus in the league. you take out the cup games,
Yep.
and that was certainly
the
case,
season
like.
as a whole was almost like a board game. And for me, if you're referring to the season as a board game, it was snakes and ladders. We climb the ladder, get to the Liverpool game, and then we hit the snake and down we go. So it was like snakes and ladders, literally.
I like that analogy, mate. That was very good. But so let's see. What was your favourite game of the season, or Saints' best game of the season?
For me, I think it was Chelsea at home. I thought it was a fantastic performance. I just thought an all-round performance as a team. The team played together for each other, and I just thought it was an absolutely outstanding performance. I just thought we were the better team. It's just unfortunate we didn't get the full-end result we deserved, because I thought we were the better team. I thought we played fantastically well.
The thing is it showed to me what Ralph can do, because basically we were coming into the game and we had a run of fixtures where it was loss all over the place, right? And Ralph had obviously come in with a game plan of, right, if nothing else happens during this game, we are going to stop the rot and get a result here, And I think for me, it was the one time that I looked at someone like Moussa Djenepo, and I thought to myself, he could still, he still has a future at this football club, because the amount of tackling and commitment, particularly that he showed, but everybody else in the team, like you said, it was a team performance, and I just felt that, it stopped the rot. But I would tend to agree, but I'm going to obviously pick a different one now. But and so on the flip side of that, then, Mark, what was Saints' worst game of the season?
I've actually got two, but for me, the number one disappointment, and I thought the worst game, Leicester in the semi-final of the Cup. You get one opportunity as a player, maybe in your career, to appear in a Cup final, and for me, they just weren't there. They weren't up for it. There was no motivation. They didn't seem committed. I don't know what happened, but for a player to not be motivated for a cup game at the semi-final as well, how on earth you can't be motivated for that? I really can't fathom. So for me, that was the number one. But secondly, to not be able to put a nine-man team away in Newcastle was awful. I think we had one shot on target when they went down to 9, which I thought was awful. So for me, those are the two. But the top one, the semi-final in the Cup, I thought was awful. It was a dreadful performance. There didn't seem to be any desire, commitment, motivation. It devoid of everything. It was a team that just didn't turn up. And as I say, Newcastle, the inability to put a team away who were there for the taking, literally there for the taking. So I thought those two games were definitely the worst of the season, but the Cup's got to be the top one.
Okay, thanks, mate. So then moving on, can you tell me your player of the season?
I actually thought until he got injured, Oriol Romeu was going to take it by a country mile. But for me, given the fact, 2 back-to-back Premier League campaigns, every single minute, free kicks. I mean, he's outscored every other English midfielder. He's either outscored or out-contributed every single England midfielder in the current provisional squad of 33. James Ward-Prowse for me. Not the greatest captain, possibly, vocally, but leads by example. Always gives you 110%. Probably the fittest guy at the club. And 2 back-to-back campaigns every single minute is absolutely phenomenal, given how condensed this season's been as well. To do that to the level he's done it as well and be consistent week in and week out, which is a criticism he's had before, that he wasn't consistent. He's now found that consistency. So for me, definitely James Ward-Prowse, although I think if Romeu had been fully fit for the whole season, I think he would have won it. But obviously, Stuart Armstrong's had a fantastic season as well. He ran him very close, I thought. And Danny Ings, again, what would you do without him? So for me, definitely James Ward-Prowse.
Even with the injuries this season, what would you do without him?
He's an absolute talisman. So, yeah, JWP, I think, wins it on merit. But there are certainly others that deserve honourable mentions that have been very, very crucial to us. Stuart Armstrong, if he was brought in as a Stephen Davis replacement, what a replacement. That's an upgrade. No offence to Stephen Davis at all. No offence to Steve Davis. I thought he was a fantastic servant for us. Did a great job for us. But Stuart, if that was a replacement for Steve, that was an upgrade. So he's done very well, I thought. So look forward to next season, definitely.
So then moving on from there, Your one for the future?
I don't think there's any question for me. Mohamed Salisu, absolutely bossing it when he's played at left back and bossing it when he's played. Just awareness, pace, aware of what's going on around him, the ability to cover ground that you don't even see him making up. You know, a number of times in games, me and you sat there and watched him on a watch along, and he's come out of nowhere and made an interception or a tackle, and you just think the guy's phenomenal. What a talent! And I've just seen today he's been out in Ghana giving away Saints shirts, Mark. Absolutely brilliant. What can you say? You know,
Fantastic.
So for me, Mo
that's the
Salisu,
sort of acquisition you want at your football.
Mo
club,
Salisu
without a
definitely
doubt.
one for the future, and we've got to keep hold of him. And the other one, I've got to Nathan Teller. I think breakthrough season for him. You see how important that first goal was for him and what it meant to him. And I think if he's played in the right position, we have got an absolute weapon there in Nathan Teller.
Okay, here's a question for you that I wanted to ask other interviewees, but I thought I'd actually leave it just to get your thoughts on it. Okay, so I have a little bit of an issue, and again, I suppose it highlights the problem within the academy and the B team structure. Okay, you know, we talk about Nathan Teller being a youngster. He's 22 years of
Not a
age.
youngster.
To me, being a youngster's being a teenager.
Yeah.
That's a
I mean,
youngster.
If you
But
want,
if you're 22 years of age in terms of football,
well, the
you
thing
know.
is, well, if you look at the rest of the academy players, there's only one other player. There's only two other players who stand out in the academy that are definitely ones to keep an eye on, and there's only two. And you'll know one of them because I know he's a favourite player of yours. You'll know both of them anyway. But for me, Oladair Olafunwa, one to keep an eye on, and the other one, Caleb Watts. If you're looking for players in the academy, those for me are probably the only two that are really there or thereabouts. I thought Alex Yankovic was going to break through. Looked a real talent. I thought he was going to make the grade. I'm not sure where he's at the moment. So for me, Caleb Watson and Oladair Olafunwa, if you keep hold of those two, keep an eye on them. They may well be stars in the future, but who knows? It's a bit of an unknown, unfortunately. And unfortunately, we don't have a very strong academy.
I just wanted to get your thoughts on the fact also, like, that Nathan Teller was 22, and you know, really at the end of the day, you want players coming through when they're 20, 19, 21. Not, you know, 22 to me is a little bit.
I mean, Nathan's got a couple of years left to develop.
Happy to have him on board, and I agree with you about the other players that you've highlighted.
Yeah, I think with Teller, Teller's probably got 2 more years of development left in him if he's capable of developing any further. But I think by the time Nathan Teller gets to 24, if he's not a first team regular and he's not turning in star performances week in, week out, then you've got to look at letting him go. So we'll see how he gets on.
Yep. Well, then I'll move on to the next question, which is basically, I'm looking for your Saints goal of the season.
For me, I think just because it was the manner of it, the way it was done, Shay Adams away against Sheffield United, absolute barnstormer. There was only one result. The second that ball left his foot, top corner, dig that one out, absolutely unsavable. The guy's got a traction engine for a foot. And it shades of James Beattie for me, who, funny enough, was his striking coach at Birmingham City. I thought it was an absolute cracker. So for me, hands down, Shay Adams, brilliant.
No worries. And
Danny Ings ran him a close second against Liverpool, though, I'll say that.
Yeah, no, 100%. So the last question, Mark, is, can I have your thoughts on maybe what we can expect or look forward to going into next season?
I think it's
I'd also like to just get your thoughts on where you'd like to see strengthened over the summer.
Well, I think without a doubt, we obviously know we've lost Ryan Bertrand, massively weak at left back at the moment. I don't think there's anyone ready to step in. Mo Salisu's done great at left back, but he's not a left back. I'd rather see him in centre of defence with Jan Bednarek, to be fair. So left back, definitely. I think we definitely could do with another striker capable of scoring a decent amount of goals, because I think between Ings, Adams to the next two down, there's an absolute chasm. The gap between them is huge. And I don't think we've got anybody ready to fill that gap. So there, definitely. Definitely fullback's more important, but I would say another striker that can score a decent amount of goals we definitely need. Regards to the season, what we can expect, if we have a good summer, if they all have a good pre-season, and if we can recruit well in the right areas, there's every reason we can finish in the top half next season. I'm quite confident that we can do that. But I do think there are things to be worked on. The fitness needs to be worked on. How do you change players' confidence? I don't know, but winning games breeds mentality. So good pre-season. Get some pre-season wins under their belt. It'll give them some confidence. We've not had a pre-season this season, and that had an impact. But hopefully, we should have a good season. Full recovery over summer. We should be able to use all the facilities we've not been able to use this season. Hopefully, we get decent players in. But I think also Ralph's got to look at it himself, a few things, and think, my in-game substitutions have been a bit of an Achilles heel this year. Maybe because we got a weak squad, that's maybe contributed to it. But I think Ralph needs to look at that. Yeah. And also, I think they need to bring in a really strong number 2 for Ralph. Somebody who's willing to say to Ralph, I think you've got that wrong. Because I don't think the support staff he's got at the moment, sadly, are good enough. And I don't think he gets enough support on a match day. How many times have we seen him cutting an isolated figure on the touchline? But for me, if things are done in the right way, there's every reason that we'd be able to finish in the top half. James Ward-Prowse himself was very disappointed this season because he felt, even with the players we had, we still could have finished in the top 10. And I agree with him. So for me, top 10's achievable next season, but it does require change at the club. So let's hope the club have actually learnt their lessons and there will be some changes because it needs to happen. We were in so much trouble in the second half of this season. If we start the way we finished, we're in big trouble. But every reason to think that...
Are you confident that the club have all their ducks in a row in terms of the recruitment for this
I'd
summer?
love to say I am, but I think, unfortunately, the club have proved in the past they're notoriously poor in transfer windows, and they've been notoriously poor in transfer windows, I think, for a while. Certain players have come in and they've been fairly good signings. Walker Peters, great signing. Can't argue with that. Still not sold on Vestergaard. Still not convinced. Still not quite sold on Gineppo. Not quite convinced on that one. Minamino coming back in on loan, not overly keen on that. Theo Walcott being appointed on a 2-year deal full-time, I'm not happy about that. I think we could have used the money in different areas and in a better way.
Can you understand then why some Saints fans might be a bit fearful going into this next season?
Yeah, I mean,
given that we went into this season in a very optimistic mood, I would say, because of Project Restart.
Yep. Yeah, I have my own apprehensions, but I think if we address the issues that we know need to be addressed, and Ralph's made it very clear he knows exactly what needs to change. If we can address those issues, there's no reason we can't finish top half. But I do have apprehensions because obviously, you'd be a fool to think that the end of this season hasn't had an impact. You'd have to be a fool to think that that's not going to have an impact and it hasn't played on people's minds, because it obviously has. But with the right tweaks in the right areas, no reason we can't finish top half.
Okay, thanks very much, Mark. Appreciate it.
Right, coming up next, we've got Barry Webb, who is the author of Super Calvin, A Celebration. Two Saints at the Euros. Good evening, Barry. How you doing?
Hiya. How are you? Pretty good. Your sun's shining. Nice to see you. Where's young Mark then? Is he hiding in that?
He's sent his apologies. He's had to dive off to. So he's obviously sent his apologies that he's not on right at this moment.
No, that's all right.
I do apologise that he's not there. So does he. How have you been keeping? You've been keeping well?
Not so good the last few weeks, but it's getting sorted. Nothing serious.
Good. It's good to know.
I think it's probably a reaction to Saints' second half of the season.
I think we've all had that reaction. Yeah, absolutely.
Mark wanted this on the back, but when he gets back, I'll take it off because I don't know if you can hear me that well with it on.
Yeah, it's coming through crystal clear. Actually, funny enough.
That's good. Good. Good few things went in there.
Absolutely. So, if you're quite happy, Barry, we'll make a start.
Indeed. Carry on, fire away.
So, just like to say massive welcome to Barry Webb, author of Super Calvin, A Celebration. So we're very lucky to be joined by Barry this evening. Good friend of mine and Mark H's, and also fantastic Saints fan. Does a lot of travelling as well, or has done a lot of travelling with Mark in the past. So I know him and Mark have had some great banter and had some really good times and some bad times as well. They've both shared. Life of a Saints fan, isn't it, really? I'm going to start by asking you, Barry, the first question, which is your thoughts on the season we've just had with Saints.
Yeah, probably the same as everyone else's. And I think you've almost just preempted what I was going to say, is the life of a Saints fan is up and down, and it was the proverbial season of two halves. That early period right up to Christmas, New Year, when we beat Liverpool. And then after that, it was catastrophe. And it's very, very difficult to understand why it was so bad, other than the injuries we had. And I think in some games, some quite below par performances, people that you'd expect to be performing at a higher level than they did.
Yeah.
But it's over now. We're still there in the Prem. So that's fine. We see what comes next.
Yeah, and I think it was good that we started the season as well as we did, because obviously if we base it on the second half of the season, we might not be in the Premier League. So, I think it's good job we started as well as we did. And I think also what hasn't helped is it's been a condensed season as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, very strange season. I think I remember, I can't remember who the manager was who took over a few years back. It might have been Strachan, who said, they've got into a losing mentality. I have to get them out of it. I've got to get them winning. And he kept seeing that losing mentality in the second half of the season. But there we are. We nearly did it in the cup. That was a shame. But that was not the most important part of the season, the cup run.
Absolutely. So off the back of that, I'd like to ask you what your best game as a Saints fan was this season.
Right. I'm possibly going to surprise people with this, but it was the 13th of December 2020, and it was at home to Sheffield United. Now, why is that my best game? Two reasons. We won 3-0, and it was one of those possible banana skins. They were bottom and we were flying pretty high. But it was my best game because I was there. I think you were there as well, probably. It was the first.
Not.
You weren't. Well, it was the first one back, and I'm a sentimental old man. And when the teams ran out for the warm up, you could feel the sort of the contact between the players and the 2,000 fans who were there. So, that rates as my best game because it was my best experience during the season.
I think that's a brilliant answer, to be fair, and probably very apt. Yeah, I think that's a fantastic answer. And obviously, the other side to that coin, your worst game for this season. And there's been a few, haven't there?
Oh, there's been a few. This was a tough one. I think eventually I came down, I say in favour of, that's the wrong phrase really, but I think it had to be Man United away, the 9-0. And not just because of what happened on the pitch, but I just got absolutely sick and tired of this mantra 9-0, 9-0. It was happening again, which was pretty irritating. But we didn't play well. But it also represents something. We had, I think it was Bednarek sent off for that one. Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was. We had two senders off, I think, didn't we?
Well, we had the early one with Jankovic, who went in like a train, but Bednarek was then sent off. And I think later that was rescinded. And that's something that I felt very strongly about during the season. We saw it again later in the season with Vestergaard. And, what help is it to you when you've just lost with 9 or 10 men to have the punishment rescinded? Because it doesn't give us back any football time.
Yeah.
So there was, so that was Man United.
I think I actually said the cup final because I thought the performance for a semi-final of the cup, which was a one-off game, maybe you one chance as a pro to make a final. I thought that was quite poor. So but for Man United, that was a horrific game again. So thanks for that. Appreciate that.
The only thing about that, Mark, is that we didn't have to travel back from it.
Exactly that. Yeah, that would have been terrible, wouldn't it? Travelling back from there. Cool. What a trip home that would have been.
Yeah, and we would have kept meeting Man U fans heading south, heading to Cornwall and so on the motorways.
And they're a lovely bunch, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, haven't been a lot of highlights this season, but can I ask you for your player of the season?
Right. Again, it's for me a slightly tricky one, and I've thought about it in two ways. And one is going down the route that everybody else has gone round, and that's got to be James Ward-Prowse.
Yeah.
And I think that's partly to do with his presence for so many minutes in the Premier League, but it's also to do with he's had some good games. Not every game has been that good. He's one of those that in some games has just slipped slightly below par and not done as much as he likes. But then I thought, well, yeah, he's very popular for all those reasons, but the man I tried to think who's entertained me the most, and that has got to be Stuart Armstrong.
Can't argue with that.
You with it? Yeah,
can't argue with that too.
I think he's so committed all the time, and he plays some darn good football. And in some games, he's been playing at his best, and the people around him haven't. So it's a tie between the two of them.
I think that's more than fair. I mean, for me, I went for James Ward-Prowse. But I kind of followed the herd a little bit, I think. But from my point of view, it was 2 back-to-back Premier League campaigns. Every single minute of both campaigns, he scored. He's actually been involved either directly through goals or through assists.
Yeah.
He's actually had more goal involvements than any other England midfielder, which is fantastic. And that includes the current squad. But Stuart Armstrong, I said to Mark a couple of times on the show, if Stuart Armstrong was brought in to replace Stephen Davis, no offense to Stephen Davis, who's been a great player for us, Stuart Armstrong, cool. What an upgrade.
Well, it's amusing because one of my sons-in-law is a Rangers man.
Okay.
And when Davis went back, he was absolutely delighted to see him up there. But he was a bit, what's the word? Critical of Stuart Armstrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Largely because Stuart played for Celtic, not because of his skills or lack of them.
Yeah.
But while you've got me on, hi Mark.
Hey Barry, how you doing?
All right.
Hang on a sec. Yeah.
Hi everybody. So Mark H has just joined us on the interview with Barry at the moment. Mark was temporarily indisposed, but he's back with us now.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Barry.
We were just finishing up what Barry was saying in regards to player of the season, Mark, before we move on to his one for the future. So we'll just finish up on the player of the season, Barry.
Yeah, Stuart Armstrong, and me saying that he's kind of sits alongside Ward-Prowse. But you mentioned Stephen Davis, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. I might write to the CEO. Wouldn't it be? You know what's coming? Wouldn't it be great to have a testimonial for Stephen Davis next summer?
100%.
Rangers, Saints, and again, as I said, my son-in-law, who's a Rangers man, he said that would be an absolutely brilliant idea because he's been so committed to both clubs.
Absolutely. I would absolutely love that. So off the back of that, a testimonial for Stephen Davis. Going to the other side of the coin, who's your one for the future at the club?
Again, thinking hard about it, and there are some that I would think, they could do better, but I think it has to be down to Nathan Teller. I think he's been a breath of fresh air. Plays with a smile on his face, almost literally. He's got that big grin.
You're not kidding.
I did put the mask on, Mark, because you specially requested it. But I'm going to take it off now because it's beginning to get a bit hot and claustrophobic in it.
It's the mask from the photo on the Saints site, Barry. I seen that you were obviously at the Leeds game.
Yeah, well, it's not the first time that it's been published, because if you go to the programme for, I think it was the West Ham game on the 29th last year, I did a 2-page spread on what it had been like coming back to the Sheffield United game, which, Mark, we talked about just now. Yeah. And I'm in there with the full mask on, sitting on the Kingsland stuff.
I'm not sure whether I've actually purchased that program, but now that I know that, Barry, I will be purchasing that very program.
And next time I see you, I'll sign it for you, Mark.
Oh, look at that. Fantastic.
Thanks, mate.
There you go. We have a celebrity among us.
No, I actually did it just as a very, very briefly. I was so impressed by the organisation at the Sheffield United game. I don't know if you were there, Mark Harper, Mark H.
No, I wasn't. That's reassuring to know, though, because I took the decision. I could have went to a few games, but I took the decision not to.
Yeah.
I hadn't had my jobs.
No.
That's why I didn't go to the Leeds game. I only just got my second job on Thursday.
Well, I decided to go. My son-in-law came out of the lucky dip, but I was one of the lucky ones who was going to go anyway. And I had the vaccine. No, it hadn't been booked then, the vaccination. But I thought I can't miss it somehow. And
definitely not, Barry. I wouldn't expect you to miss it. You're royalty.
Silly.
You're Saints royalty, mate. You're Saints royalty.
But I put it into the program because I've been writing bits and pieces for the program anyway, and I just wanted to praise up the organisation. I mean, it was extraordinary because none of us knew what to expect. But you went through, and by the time I got into the seat, I just felt really safe,
good,
and happy to be there.
That's good to know.
That's good. I'm going to put you on the spot now, Barry, because I know a lot of people have struggled with this one. I think there's probably a few standout candidates, but your goal of the season.
Yeah, cheers.
All the best.
I did think long and hard about it, and I got it down to 2. In second place was Che Adams' volley against. Oh, I've gone blank.
Sheffield United.
Sheffield United away,
wasn't it? Yeah, that was a fantastic volley, but in the end, I expect a lot of people gone for Ingsy, and I went for Ings against Liverpool. That goal he scored, I saw it again about a month ago, and the way he kind of twisted himself to flick it over his shoulder, and the keeper had no chance. I mean, it was a fluke, but knowing him,
no, he meant that.
He meant to do that. He was looking to do it. If he'd missed, we'd have all said, "Oh, unlucky," but he didn't. And
the thing for me, what made it even better was he didn't even look. It was a no-look lob. It was absolutely brilliant. He totally meant it.
Yeah.
And it just, for me, it's like Mark says several times, Danny Ings always creates something out of nothing. There was nothing on, and boom, back of the net. Brilliant.
And when he took it, and you saw it in fast motion, and then I thought, oh, it's rather like a bicycle kick. But then when you look at it again, it's even more subtle and intricate than the bicycle kick. I mean, the goalkeeper had no chance. It was a beautiful goal. So that's my candidate.
Yeah, I can't argue that.
If you watch some of his goals over the last 2 seasons, Barry, you'll find that his awareness on the pitch positionally, where he is, has a lot to do with his goal scoring ability, because a lot of the time he'll pick the ball up and he's in the 18-yard box and there's absolutely nothing on for him. So, he takes either a shot or he creates something out of nothing.
Well, for me,
that's more to do with his positioning and awareness of where he is on the pitch.
For me, the 2 best goals, for me as a Saints fan, the 2 best goals I've seen Danny Ings score, the Liverpool goal, something out of nothing. And for me, though, and because of the opposition as well, at home against Tottenham, Letizia-esque, brings the ball down, dumps Toby Alderweireld on his backside with 1 touch, dispatches it with a second to take the keeper out of the game. Absolutely brilliant.
A very good example, though, of what Mark H was saying there is a game when he came, the ball was going out to the right wing, and I think it was their left back who was favourite to get the ball. And somehow Ingsy got it and got round to him and then got out, and I think he crossed it for, was it Che Adams scored from it?
Yes. Yeah, that's right, Barry.
But like you've hit the nail on the head, his awareness of what's going on is fantastic. And his speed, his speed.
Yeah. Well, it's the speed with his feet as well, because I think Mark said it was brilliantly demonstrated away to Everton. Stuart Armstrong smacked the ball into him, comes to him on completely the wrong foot, And somehow or other, he manages to get it on his favoured foot and puts it away. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the speed of which he moved his feet. So speed of thought and speed of feet. He scored some great goals. I mean, where would he be without him?
Well, possibly not playing Brentford next season.
And on that note, I think we'll move on to what do you believe we can expect from next season?
I've used the word tricky a couple of times. What I want to see, and whether I can properly expect to see it, is some decent investment in the summer. And someone recently was rehearsing to me all the players that we've got out on loan who are worth money. I think there's going to have to be a bit of a clear out to get some money in. I'm not going to go too public on the owners, but I do feel at the moment that they are probably hanging on the side of getting money out of the club rather than putting money in.
Yeah.
And that saddens me. We shall see. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm not over optimistic, but on the playing side, I think if we hold on to as many of the players we've got, I worry to death about losing Vestergaard, who was nicknamed by us Bambi in the first few months he was there, because he kept falling over and slipping over. He's brilliant. I mean, some of the work again, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be where we are at the end of this season.
He has improved, Vestergaard, but I must confess, and me and Mark will confess this, his nickname on the Two Saints show has become the Queen Mary, unfortunately, because the turning circle is quite similar and the speed's quite similar, but he's definitely improved. So, I think he's definitely an asset at the moment.
For me, Barry, he was getting a tune out of Vestergaard earlier in the season. Definitely getting a tune out of him. And that's to Ralph's credit, as a coach and a manager. I actually would, but because we need money, and I think personally, I don't think that him or Stevens fits in to the way that Ralph wants to play. Basically because they're, as centre halves, they're slow. So you've got the problem that when we're attacking and everybody's moving forward, as soon as the opposition gets the ball, if those two have passed the halfway line, they're struggling to get back and into position. And And I think that's my biggest worry. So I think if someone came in and they made an offer of 15 million, or I'd even be prepared to take 12 million, although I'd want to see that reinvested in another centre half, personally.
The other part of my answer to the question is a more sort of positive one, and that is looking at the players that I think there are, in my mind, I would say three that have huge potential for next year, and that's Diallo, Salisu, who surprised me.
Brilliant.
Seeing Salisu play live is very different, because you get a picture of where he is on the pitch. He's a very, very good reader of the game. And the other one is young Teller, who I've already mentioned. So we've got new talent coming through. Ralph's all very keen on development of players. So hopefully, as well as bringing in some new, we're going to have a press the refresh button on some of the older players and get the best out of the potential of the younger ones. I think just a couple of other things, because I know time's pressing, but I like the new shirt.
Love it.
It's not to everybody's taste, but
we like it. Don't worry, we like it. We're glad that Bubbles.
I don't know if you noticed, Barry. I said to Mark, I didn't know if Mark had seen this, but what I actually did was I had a closer look at the shirt. And what they've done, which is fantastic, is they've actually got inside the collar, they've got like Archers, Itching, Kingsland. They've got basically all the areas of the grounds, the Dow and St Mary's. And they've also, inside the back of the shirt, they've actually put like a sketch of the stadium, like an aerial shot, and a DNA symbol, which I thought was genius. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, I was playing the launch video to my grandson this about lunchtime, and he was in hysterics and thought it was brilliant. The whole idea of you don't need to extract the DNA; it's there in the red and white stripes. I quite honestly didn't see that. But one almost final thing, the thing I'm looking forward to most next season, guess what that is?
Go on.
It's going away with all my buddies on the coach.
I thought you might say that.
I feel I've missed so much of that camaraderie, the banter, whether it's with people on the official travel club or whether it's on the away travel, Saints away travel. You know, there's that lovely feeling when you meet people at the services and so on, when you talk to people at the ground. And somehow, even if you come away losing, there's something, oh, well, we did our best, and there's this sort of, as I say, camaraderie around.
Well,
there's only one time when I think, sorry, I'll hold you up.
No, it's fine.
One time I think back, and there's a coach journey, and we all got on the coach at the end of the game, and no one spoke until we got to St Mary's. No, it wasn't St Mary's, until we got to the Dell.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was Tranmere Rovers.
Yeah, with the lost score 3.
And nobody could speak. It was sort of disbelief. Anyway, I'm going on a bit now, but hope that's been helpful.
Absolutely brilliant. And I'll just add something, Barry, on the regards to the away travel, and I think Mark will agree with this. I think it's fair to say, and I know Mark's missed the camaraderie and the banter and all his friends from travelling away. I think it's fair to say when that happens, there's definitely going to be tears, but it'll be tears of joy.
Yeah. It's going to be something. And you'll be travelling regularly, will you, Mark?
Yes,
Mark?
Of course. Barry, wild horses wouldn't keep me away. I
was going to say, you try keeping him away.
I talk about him quite often. After the awful, when I missed the Denmark game, and I didn't realise people knew much about it until I got to the Warwick services, and this Northern Ireland accent bellowed to me. I won't try and imitate it, Mark. Bellowed across the car park. Oh, I see you missed going to Copenhagen then, and he'd seen it, heard it on the radio from Adam Blackmore. I thought, I don't believe this. You know, by then the whole car park knew that I was the one who'd missed the play. But there we are.
Yeah, well done, Mark.
I'll forgive you.
So, everybody, we've been, as I said, very fortunate. We were joined by the author of Super Calvin, A Celebration, Barry Webb, good friend of mine and Mark's as well. Avid Saints fan, away traveller as well. Is there nothing he can't do? He does an awful lot. And he's from Salisbury as well. So, great to have you on, Barry. Really appreciate you taking the time out to do this interview this evening. And ever so grateful for you doing it. So, thanks ever so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Right, that brings us to the end of part 2 of the Two Saints end of season review featuring Saints fans. So, coming up next time, we've got part 3.